Hello, welcome back. This next episode is episode 5, where we will cover the recruitment phase. We'll be covering the recruitment phase in 3 parts. The first part is the commitment of U.S. forces, ARVN forces, and the Free World Allies. We're going to start with the U.S. deployment. Most of what's going to happen is going to be on this chart here, the U.S. record sheet. So we start the game with 25 U.S. commitments. So that would be recorded on U.S. starting commitment. There it is right there. Any new commitment that you spend on this turn is going to be right there. So at the beginning of the game, we have 21 air points. So that's the starting air available right there. We have 2 air mobile points available. So that is air mobile available. We'll be starting with 2. This is just what we get at this beginning of the game. And we also have some other things. We have naval strength, which is noted way up here. That starts at 1. And we have 0 riverines to start the game. So that is over here, riverines available. So anytime we buy something, we put how much we buy under new riverines, new air mobile, new air, for example. New units will be placed on the map, and replacement points are as such. So at the beginning of the game, ARVN has 0 replacement points. So I've noted that with a 0 here. Though the first thing before we get to this phase, you have this free buy period at the beginning of the game. So you might have bought ARVN replacements up to that, but prior to this point, which is suggested. But at the beginning of the game, US has 3 replacement points noted on the general record track with the replacement marker. Any purchases you make to the replacements are going to be noted by just moving it up, for example. So U.S. commitment is pretty straightforward. Any battalion you place costs 1 commitment. You get 2 105 millimeter artillery batteries for 1 commitment. 3 air points cost 1 commitment. Naval points, 4 commitment. You get the idea. And it's just a straight up increase in the amount of commitment that you have recorded on your sheet. It's worth noting that South Vietnamese military supplies cost 1 commitment for 7. If you don't purchase them, then you'll have no supplies in the next step with which to purchase ARVN. So here's a standard battalion. As you noted on the chart, this is going to cost you 1 commitment. So let's say we spent that commitment. We can now take this unit and put it at any port. So that's port. So any of those anchor symbols is a port. So after you've completed all of your spending, you make a notation here under new commitment. A popular question is, how much commitment can you purchase in 1 turn? The answer is as much as you want, as long as your commitment does not exceed your morale. So now we can deploy South Vietnamese units. Now this is a little trickier than the U.S. units, where it's just you pay commitment, you get the unit. In this case, you're going to need to place, you're going to need to pay personnel as well as supplies. We're going to be working with the number to the left of the colon at the beginning. The number to the right is for upgraded units, and we're not going to do that for a little bit. But for example, if you wanted to buy an ARVN infantry regiment, it costs you 1 personnel and 2 supplies. So you'll notice that ARVN has a certain amount of population available. At the start of the game, it's 217. And that's going to go up and down based on how your pacification goes. And then we have initial draft level, which it starts at 0, but we did spend some draft points to put down our initial build, which is kind of a pre-game thing. So we're going to have a draft level right here. And that draft level is going to be some number. And that's the number of people that have been used. So if we buy one regiment, for example, it uses one person. So we're going to add another person here. We would put a 1 there if we bought one regiment. We would add that to get an ending draft level. You can go as high as you want on the draft level as long as you stay underneath or equal to the population available. It can never exceed. So an interesting point is that South Vietnam has a certain amount of people available, and that is a hard cap that you use for the entire 10-year game. The beginning of the game, you have a supply pool plus whatever the U.S. has added to it here with new supply, and then you spend your supply. You can only spend supply that you have available, and then you note your ending supply here. So let's say we bought one ARVN artillery company. I'm sorry, that's a battalion, artillery battalion. You can see that this is 105 millimeters, so it's going to cost us 4 supplies. So we note 4 supplies, place it at any port. So the ARVN have the same restriction as the US. They have to be placed at ports. I assume that this is to model that the supplies are arriving at port, and that's where the units are formed. The last bit is the free world allies, which is your Koreans, Australians, etc., etc. And this can be a little bit complicated in terms of how they're deployed and the costs and when they do and don't have costs and withdrawals and replacements. So I'm just going to go over what you might run into first, the very easy part first. So the first unit the first country that's going to donate you units is Korea. So when the U.S. gets to 50 commitment, then it triggers you to roll. So this is at the end after you've bought U.S. units, after you've bought ARVN units. You start rolling for elements of the capital division, and if you roll a 1 through 4 per element, that element arrives. Now I use the word arrives because that's what the book uses. What that means is that unit is now available for purchase. Now all of the free world allies work a little bit different, so I'm just talking about just the Koreans right now, and I'm going to go in more detail in a future video. So the when it arrives, you have the choice to purchase it or not. If you don't purchase it right now, you set it aside. It's available for purchase next season. The 9th Division arrives on a 1. The 2nd Marine Division arrives on a 1 or a 2. If any of these rolls fail, you set them aside and you roll for them again next season. All right, I hope you found this helpful, and we'll see you next time on episode 6.